If I keep the business going out east, I might have a toupee, veneers. I'll do like the fancy flower in the shirt.
All right, guys, so we're here with a heavy hitter today, in the presence of greatness. We got Sean Manning with Realty Connect and the Over South team. What's going on?
What's going on? What's going on?
So, first, I always like to start with like your origin story. How'd you get started?
So I got started over the past 5 or 6 years. I've done pretty well with buying and selling some properties, and always capitalized and did pretty good, and always had like a knack for just talking to people, and some of those deals ended up working out heavily in my favor, and one led to the next, and there was a certain time period where I realized that it might be better suited to, instead of just throwing alley-oops to realtors, and to kind of get my own license. So it was probably right in the midst of that craziness during the pandemic or COVID, where my wife mentioned something like, you should really get your license. You've talked about it, and I did it, and then it completely shot out like a rocket ship. So it's things are going really good right now, to say the least.
And what so give us like the back of your baseball card, so to speak. Like, what are your stats? Where are you at right now?
So I got my license in March. So March would be like my rookie month if we're talking a baseball card, and it doesn't look like the rookie month. These bags under my eyes are definitely an testament to no sleep and busting my ass. But probably didn't get really cranking, even like just off the ground marketing and networking. I did some really awkward events that I went to early on that I look back at, and where they like slap a name tag on you, and it's like, hi everybody, you feel like you're at like some sort of like movie AA meeting. And but I got really off the ground running in April, so late March, early April, and right now there's around 30 deals in the past, I would say this quarter, that have just closed and are closing in the next few weeks. So it's been a monstrous July and half of August. Yeah, and September's already setting up pretty nutty, so that's where I'm at. I'm hovering around like the 15 to 20 mil range in total home sales, which is not a boaster. Since April.
So not even the full year.
No, I didn't even have my license.
Right.
I didn't have January, February, March. I was sitting there by a computer. Sitting there by a computer doing the tests and getting everything going. I didn't take my test until February, I believe. So it's short change for the year, and it's not a boast.
20 million in 4 months.
Approximately, yeah. Well, it's a little more than 4 months. So April, May, June, July, end of August will be 5 months. Nuts.
20 million in 4
Yeah,
months.
it's pretty nuts. Yeah, it's pretty nuts.
That is. Yeah. So where is that business coming from? Because most people don't do 20 million their first year, their second year, their third year. Most people, they're lucky to get 10 million out for their first year. That's like a good first year. So how do you get 20 million in not even half of a year?
A lot of it is just your general network. So I haven't even like thought about what other people are doing stat-wise and stuff. I pay attention because you have to pay attention. You don't mimic weakness, right? You mimic what people are, the successful people, so I pay attention. But I haven't really honed in. Like, you're a numbers guy, you know when somebody's doing well, there's a category of, and the numbers don't lie. I still don't know that yet. Right. So like, I ask you, and you'll be like, yeah, that's really good. I don't know enough to like set my benchmark.
Right.
And I think that helps me because there's no like end in sight, if that makes sense, but where it's coming from is your immediate network. So like, I've said it before, I don't really find, not that this is right or wrong, I don't really find the need to market where your face isn't, I guess, recognizable. Right. I'm not saying it wouldn't be lucrative, and I'm exploring those options, but initially, to get off the ground, I feel like my biggest asset are the people around me. Like I could walk into, you know, a Starbucks in Great Neck and not one person would know who I am. But if I walk into the Starbucks in Bayport or the old one in Sayville, I'm, you know, far from Zach Morris, but people are going to recognize me when I walk in there, and that network is your biggest asset.
Right.
So, and that's a lot of it where it's coming from. I also feel like when you build a good referral network around you, obviously a lender, that is just tremendous.
Right.
And when I started, and me and you had that, and none of this is because we're here. We talk about this every day, but when we sat down and we started working things out and figuring out, you know, how you could help me, but more importantly, I don't know if you remember what I said it has to benefit the both of us. So I want to know how I can potentially grow business for a person that's already at where I want to be. Right. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think a lot of it comes into that sense as far as where the business is coming from.
Right.
So
yeah, I think well, what you said about starting with your own network. A lot of people, what they'll try and do, and it frustrates the hell out of me, even with social media specifically, but let's just speak more vaguely. They want to market to a cold audience.
Yes.
And which I get it. And you should do that. And you should be worried about brand awareness and meeting new people. But what about the people that you already know? That already known you for 15, 20, 30, however many years. That is where the money is.
Oh, yeah.
There's tons of, it's like, you know, before you start venturing out, trying to build a cold audience and, you know, trying to blow up on TikTok or start your own podcast, right? Figure out how you can market to your sphere of influence. Any top producing realtor will tell you most of their business is sphere of influence or referral. That's the number one. They have other buckets, but if you look, I'm big on pattern recognition. So I look at what successful people have done and try to copy it. What I see being a successful pattern is you build out one bucket, let's call it sphere of influence. When you have that bucket full, or it's actually producing, then you venture into starting your second. A lot of people will start 6 buckets at once.
Yeah.
And that's
you spread
not
yourself
good
too
either.
thin.
Correct. Plus, your energy is best spent on people that already know you. So you already having that established network, which we'll get into in a second, that is where all my time would be focused on.
Oh, absolutely.
And you're a perfect example of leveraging that and succeeding with that very, very early on, very quickly.
Yeah,
so, but yeah, I remember the first time we sat down. It's funny because you reached out to me, which is not normal. Normally, loan officers are cold calling realtors, DMing, being super thirsty, and not a knock at all. That's what you got to do, right? It's part of the business. But whenever a realtor reaches out to me, I take note of that because it's like, all right, cool. This is a sign that I'm doing the right thing, right? And it happens a lot now, thank God. So you reached out to me, which is the first thing that I noticed. Second thing that I noticed when we sat down, you were all about what can I do for you?
Yeah.
Right? Where a lot of people, it's the complete opposite.
Yeah,
what
they come
you
with
can do for me.
their hand out. Yeah.
So, especially in this business, which I get it, like both sides, it needs to make sense for both sides, but you were focusing on the other side.
Yes.
Which is also another thing that I think shows that you're going to be successful. I was once told, and it's completely unrelated to business, but there's 2 ways to walk into a room. You walk in, you say, here I am, or you walk in, you say, here you are.
Yes.
And you had that here you are mentality, and I think that bleeds through everything, and the universe takes note of that, and then you start to build momentum and traction, and all of a sudden, and then you're also working your ass off.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. What is your, because I know because of conversations that we had off the camera, but like there's also no secrets to this shit. I can ask you where the business came from. Yeah. You can give me, one or two bullet points, but like talk about like the grind and what you do on a daily basis.
It's tough. It's not easy. It's tough. I do this part-time. So, my profession that for just about 17 years has given me pretty much everything that I have from my family and my life will always be like number one, you know, not to sound cheesy, but it's true. So doing this part-time, and it's not a knock, I can't stress enough that like this success I should say, is not I've never done this.
Right.
So like it's like the guy, like if you follow the Knicks, like when Jeremy Lin was hot for like that week period,
Right.
it was nuts. The Garden was on fire, New York was crazy, and like for me as a diehard Knicks fan, like that was like an unbelievable, I'll never forget that. Like that was an unbelievable time period. He didn't boast and brag about it, like he acted like he's been there before. So for me, when I talk about the things I'm doing, it's not to say, oh, but Joe Schmo and, you know, Bob and Harry, and they're not doing that. It's like, I've never done it.
Right.
So like to talk about it is awesome. And like what I said before, the benchmarks, I don't know what they are.
Right.
Like I really don't. I'll know at the end of the year, and I'm gonna beat that next year. And that's because of how I am. I can't sit still. And I joked around with somebody the other day about like patience, and I feel like not having patience, there should be like, that should be a positive trait too, besides just being annoying. Like I'm annoying and I annoy you, and you know, and that's how it is. But I think ultimately the success breeds success. So when you're around people who are doing it, you're like, oh, that's cool, you know, he's doing that, I want to do that, and that helps out a lot. So ultimately I feel that where you are and how you devote your time will always produce results if you manage that correctly. So again, I don't know if this is exactly where I should be, but I feel like it's a damn good road, you know, that I'm traveling down.
How do you manage your time?
So it's tough. You have to have a huge support system. I'm not a single guy living at home. You know, like I have three kids, young kids, and basically a baby at home. My little guy's 1. Right. So it's a lot of work. I don't have like a 19-year-old who's watching the 10-year-old and the 5-year-old. Right. Like I need babysitters. My wife is a huge support system, obviously. I mean, you can't not have that type of success if you have, you know, constraints at home. Like you have to have that. Right. So typically that helps, but I'm up at 5:30, 6 in the morning, you know, and then I have work. So I go to work and I go all in there, and that will never change. And then the beauty of being in the real estate industry is that you make your own hours. Nobody could ever tell me, hey, you need to be here at this time. And starting a team, when those types of situations present itself, I can be, because I have the ability to have somebody else back me up, and it'll help them out financially and with experience, and it helps me out too. Right. So that is the key to the success of managing time, but also having a team around you, you know, while I'm doing this part-time.
So you have the support system.
You have to.
And talk about the team, because we can talk about you as a individual top producer, but you also have this thing that you're building.
Yeah. Awesome.
So tell me a little bit about that.
So I thought of, I'm big with branding, and like I think that anybody can come up with oh, you're Sean, well, let's do the Sean team. Right. But what is that? Like, it's cheesy. Right. So like I didn't want to do that. I didn't want that at all. And that's to me. It's not to everybody else, but for me, I don't need that notoriety as I sit here doing these interviews with a Christmas color blazer on. I don't need that like flashy, like, oh, it's all about me. I wanted to build a brand of something that is an actual business. It's not just, oh, let's come up with a logo and let's move forward with it. I want this to last, and I want this to withstand ups and downs and trends in the market, and when nobody's buying houses, we're still successful. So by doing that, you need the right people around you. And I have 9 agents right now, with 2 more coming aboard within the next few weeks. So it's like a little army right now, and they're cranking away and they're running around, and we update each other daily, but Sundays are a big powwow, you know, whether it's on the phone or we meet together time to time. It's everybody staying busy that's what it's about. So if we could do that and we could stay busy, it works. If things don't stay busy, you know, revisit it.
How are you developing your agents?
So how I develop the agents, I feel that not knowing what's right and wrong helps me in a certain way because I'm able to be a problem solver and think outside the box. So the traditional agent who's everything's by the book, oh, this has to be this, you can't do that, you can do this. I kind of watch a little bit of what everybody does. I'm not saying you bend the rules. My broker's phenomenal at keeping me in check, but I will say that knowing a lot of the stuff that has, I should say, have grown what I'm doing, social media is tremendous, and some of the agents on my team who didn't exactly do that, they kind of like played the background and do like the strict, we market, we do our mailers, we send out schedules before baseball season, we send out a Christmas card. That stuff helps, and it does, and it keeps you relevant. If you market on my block and nobody's ever seen your face and you do it once in a blue moon, but I'm doing it every week, even if somebody contacts them and says, hey, you're interested in selling your house, can you think of a realtor who's in the area? Who are they going to think of? They're going to think of the guy that they see all the time, even if they've never even met me. So I think that's some of the ways that I'm pushing them to conduct themselves business-wise is helping, but they also show me things that have been successful over the years. I think that not your average agents and those types of workshops, I think we've discussed this, getting everybody involved in them is going to be tremendous for my business and for their business as a team. It's all strength in numbers. When Sean's busy, everybody's busy. If Sean's not busy and Anita's busy and Tara's busy and Cheryl's busy, everybody's busy. So that's what I think really helps out, and you have to stay on top of your craft. You have to become a black belt in it. If you do it half-ass and you're not paying attention to what's going on in the market, forget about just rates or recent sales, just the general sense of what's going on. Talking to other people, talking to other realtors during open houses, talking to other realtors during showings. What's going on in Montauk? I'm in a position where I'm everywhere. I'm not just on the North Shore. I'm not just in the South Shore. Most of my recent transactions are happening east of West Hampton Beach. Like, that's not because I'm familiar out there. It's because you learn from other people. You see what people want and where they're at price point wise, and you hone in on that. So I think that helps develop people a little bit in a long, short story.
So, and now, do you think you want to expand out east?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, tell me about that. Like, why?
Oh, I mean, for me, it's work smarter, not harder. And I mean that. Like, I've worked hard in everything that I've done. I'm not going to sit here like it's, with the ASPCA music playing in the background and give you some sob story. I'll just be honest with you. I always bust my ass. I always work hard. I always try to be the best at everything. I'm extremely competitive. And sometimes that comes off as cocky, but it's not. And I'll say it for the third time. I don't know where I'm supposed to be. If we're talking 2 years from now, Eric, me and you, and I'm still doing these types of numbers and growing, then call me out. But right now, it's just happy. I'm genuinely happy, And if I keep going,
wrong with celebrating.
Exactly. If I keep the business going out east, I might have a toupee, veneers. I'll do like the fancy flower in the shirt, But right now, where I'm at, I like it out there. I'm familiar with out there. I went to college out there. I lived out there. I got married out there. Our family has a place out there. So that helps. It's not just, oh, hey, you're a South Shore guy and now you're doing business in West Hampton Beach and Montauk and Southampton and Hampton Bays and now Sag Harbor. It's you start to kind of lift your leg up and pee on a few fire hydrants, and now your scent's out there. And now here we are. Now business is doing a little bit better, and it's only going to grow. Remember you said the buckets? My bucket is like this much filled out there, and it's going to keep growing. So I like it. I do. I think that business grows because of that.
And so let's take a step back from business real fast. Where did you grow up? What kind of guy were you in high school?
Oh, wow.
Did you go to college?
Yeah.
Tell me.
Oh, you're going back, huh?
Yeah. Well, let's answer the first question. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Belport.
Okay.
Yeah.
And born and raised?
Born and raised. Yeah. I grew up in Belport. Moved to Brookhaven when I was in like 10th grade, I think, or 11th grade, where you could walk to the high school. So I did that for like a year or two. I think maybe it was 2 years. And then
What kind of kid were you in high school?
This
is one of my favorite questions to ask people, because for some reason high school was very very important to my development.
Yeah.
in many ways. So I always like to figure out, like, I always look at people like, what kind of guy was he, or what kind of girl was she in high school? Because that's always interesting for me to think about. And a lot of people, that development process happens in college, after, before, wherever, but that's just for me. It's just a cool question I like to ask.
I was definitely on the immature side. I think I was a late bloomer. I was one of the youngest kids in my grade for, obviously every year. And I tell my parents all the time, I wish one more year. Like, if you would have just waited that extra month or two, I could have started a year later. But so I developed a little bit just in generally, like in schoolwork and on playing sports and with like the cliques that you see. Like, I was a little bit more on the laid back side. But then I played a bunch of sports.
Gotcha.
So Bellport is known for their football team, and I was the quarterback, which is like, obviously, it's like the shortstop in baseball.
Right.
So to do that and be around all the popular athletes and all the, that comes with that territory, that made me grow up a little bit quicker, even though I was younger than everybody in my grade. That helped out a lot, and I think, like, for my kids, I don't push them at all, and I wasn't pushed, I was guided, but when that locker room mentality is a totally different animal.
Right.
Like, if you have that experience, like, I never went away to college and lived in a dorm room. I went to college, but I didn't have that atmosphere. So that's one thing, just off topic, to go back, like, that's something I missed out on a little bit. But with high school, being in a locker room setting and being around your peers and your teammates, that kind of, I think that would be like a good definition of who I was. I played a bunch of sports. I had a good amount of friends. Everybody has their struggles with grades and just kind of trying to fit in, but I was a little on the immature side, if I could look back.
So you played football, and what else?
I played football and lacrosse.
Okay.
Yeah.
You played lax?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Midi?
Midi, yeah.
Attack?
Yeah, Midi, yeah.
So I grew up in a lacrosse town, but I started playing lacrosse, trying to play lacrosse in middle school. But all these kids in Rockville Center were like already 10 years.
Nassau is huge.
It's really big in the town that I went to high school in. But I didn't know that. I thought it was just football.
No, football and lacrosse. I played football and lacrosse, and my senior year was Bellport. These are like Al Bundy, like Uncle Rico stories right now. Like, I hate this. Chop this up. But that was our first football. We were always nasty, but in lacrosse, that was my senior year. It was the first time they ever made the playoffs, Bellport, ever. So like, that was not because of me.
Nah, because of you.
I was a captain, no big deal. But no, seriously, that was that was kind of cool.
Is that where you get your competitiveness from?
Oh, absolutely.
So
I mean, I was the kid who would throw the controller, like if I was losing.
Games?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, horrible.
Yeah.
Horrible. Yeah.
And do you look at real estate like a sport?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm how I am. Yeah.
I'm asking these questions. I know the
No.
answers to them, but I want to
to
get your answers on camera.
You have to. You have to look at it that way. If you don't look at it that way, what's driving you?
Right.
Like, everybody, and I say this too, when you don't rely on it, I think it comes a lot more naturally. So for me, who doesn't love success, right? Who doesn't love being able to provide for your family on another level?
Right.
I'm very grateful, but it is nice. There's no secret. It is nice. So when you see it and you get a taste of it, it's like blood. This is it. Now it's like this is how I have to be.
Right.
I don't want to have 2023 lower. I joked around with you the other day with that article on Newsday where it said the market in 2022 is way. Really, I didn't know that because I'm doing business here now. Like,
well, I think if you're expanding, it doesn't matter if the market's shrinking.
Yeah.
And that's your goal should always be expansion.
Yeah.
And that's all you should be focused on. I know one of the lessons that I learned from Grant Cardone.
Yeah, of course.
So one of the lessons that I learned from Grant Cardone is like, you should not be competing. You should be dominating. Because if you're not top 3, when the market shrinks, how are you going to survive?
Yeah.
Right? When everybody's volume gets cut, are you still going to be okay? You should be able to say, if my business got chopped in half right now because of whatever thing that I can't control, I'm still going to be all right. And as long as you keep expanding and doing the right thing, which I'll talk about in a second, that is attainable. I think a lot of people underestimate what they need to do to expand and overestimate what they need to do to like maintain.
Yes.
And then they're caught in this middle ground where they're not doing enough to expand. They're just doing a little bit more than they need to maintain.
Yeah.
And then when the market gets pulled out from under them, they're in a bad spot.
Oh yeah.
With you don't have any prior experience. Like
don't
you
know
keep
what's
seeing.
bad,
So you
yeah.
don't know what is crushing it and what is like normal and what is average. You're treating this like a sport.
Yes.
And,
That's it.
and trying to be the best that you can be on a daily basis, which that's I think the best people in any industry, that's how they think of it.
I watch everybody.
Right.
How many times do I ask you?
Right.
I mean, there's
doing
no
what?
secret who's doing what. I want to know, and that's it. If you don't want to know, if you don't think that the pro athlete, a guy goes out there and it has a bad game, that he doesn't check the stats, if he doesn't wake up the next day and find out what people in the division are doing, or what his competitors, and whether it be they're both in a contract year and he wants to know where his market's going to be in the off season, they definitely do. Anybody who tells you that is not telling the truth.
Let's talk about the market real fast. So what are your thoughts on it? I know we just talked about, but give me your thoughts aside from that.
So I feel that where we're at right now, and this is just me in my very limited 3-hour experience, I feel that what I'm seeing, being fortunate enough to be on the listing and buying side, I think that you're not seeing as many qualified buyers as you did 3 months ago before the summer, but I also feel that the qualified buyers who are there are being more aggressive now. So I feel like they didn't want to play nice in the sandbox in April and May and early June, because nobody wants to get in a bidding war on the buyer side. You just don't. That's not the animal that you want to take on when you're trying to find an investment, no less a house for your family. But I feel like now they're kind of throwing their weight around a little bit, and it's like, well, here I am. It doesn't really matter what the rates are. And now everybody else, the sea has opened, and now I'm in to go buy. So I think that a good priced house, kudos to some of the agents in our company, a good priced house is going to have a ton of traffic, right? I mean, it doesn't matter if it's in November or it's in July. You price the house right, there's going to be people who are going to want to buy it. So I think outside of that, just the general consensus of the average home in my area, I feel that the open houses are quieting a little bit with foot traffic, but the people who are coming there are ready to go. And the people who are coming there know that they don't have to throw a cherry on top of their terms and their offer, because their product speaks for itself. I'm pre-approved. Here's the bank. It's a reputable bank. Here's my employment history. Here's my proof of income. I'm ready to go. Where they were kind of hovering back then and just watching everybody else fight it out. So that's what I feel. I think that the prices are going to not drop, but I think that the prices aren't going to rise at the rate that they did over the past year. They can't.
They shouldn't have.
Of course. So people are realizing that, but I love the conversations with people like, oh yeah, it's going to crash.
Let's talk about that. What do you think the market's going to crash?
No, absolutely not. Inventory is the big. I don't have to do this, and people are going to kill me who have been doing this for a long time and will disagree, and I don't care. I feel, in my personal opinion, that the inventory and the supply and demand will always dictate the prices. So if there's Sayville, right, very tough nut to crack as far as a realtor. It's a very homey community. I love it there, but there's a few agents who are powerhouses, and kudos to them, and they crush it in that neighborhood. Living there, I could tell you that, in my opinion, where you have one house south of Montauk Highway for sale in the entire neighborhood, as long as that house is priced reasonable, they're always going to get what they want, right? You add 10 in that area, it doesn't mean all the prices are going to drop. They just might not be as aggressively priced as they were a year ago. So I don't think it's going to crash at all. And I think that what I've been reading, and the people, the influencers, and the people who I follow and pay attention to, I think they're kind of on board too.
Yeah. I mean, if you ask any economist or housing expert, like the people that study this stuff, not a realtor, not a loan officer, because at the end of the day, I always take what realtors and loan officers say with a grain of salt, because no matter what's going on in the market, it's
you
the
have a
best time
motive,
to buy.
of course. Yeah,
No
let's
matter
go.
what's going on in the market, it's the
Yeah.
best time to sell.
Yeah.
Realtors go out there and they say it's the best time to buy and the best time to sell, which
All year round.
which it doesn't make sense to me. But if you look at the people who don't have a bias, none of them are saying the housing market's going to crash. The only people who are talking about that stuff is these like YouTube people and people that are outside of the housing industry that maybe are experts in other areas of the financial markets or other financial markets. It's nobody within the industry that knows this stuff, because at the end of the day, you can say the rates, you can say too fast appreciation, inflation, recession, all of that stuff is second, third, fourth, fifth to supply and demand.
Of course.
If there are 10 people for every house for sale, the prices can't go down.
And why would you if you're that homeowner? What's your incentive to drop your price when there's nobody you're competing against?
Correct. Now, I will say, I think now more than ever, the micro markets are playing a role.
Okay.
So instead of looking at Long Island as being red hot, now there's areas within Long Island that are cooling off or staying a little bit warmer for longer. So because there's real value in the areas that aren't cooling off. Like buying $1 million house in Levittown, does that make sense? I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, right? But then there are areas that it's like it's still almost undervalued. Like some of the South Shore areas of Long Island, they're like, you can still get a house for $600, and it's a great school district, and it's the taxes are somewhat reasonable. So it's like
Patchogue is booming.
There's more room to grow in those areas. Where that's what I mean by like from town to town, I think things are changing.
Yeah, of course.
Because a lot of these areas were getting so hot just because there was no other options.
I agree. Totally. I agree.
That's the way I see it, and even buyers are being a little bit more picky than they once were, but I don't think we're anywhere close to crashing.
No.
But I always ask this question. What was your biggest struggle starting out?
I think the biggest struggle starting out was getting people to trust you, and not like in a life sense, but saying, hey, you have zero experience. Yeah, you've bought properties, you've played the background and you've done that, but have you ever walked in and represented somebody and like coddled every aspect of their wants and needs to get them to the closing table? I've done it myself, like battling it out and
as a buyer.
Yeah, I've never done it in that sense. So for me, there was a guy who I'm very good friends with. He's a New York City detective, and we've been friends for a long time. He was working with an agent who they did a bunch of deals together. He's an investor. He buys properties, works on them, and then flips them and sells them. So when he said to me, and that's even tougher with friends, he's like, hey, I know how you are. I know when you do something, you go all in. Try to find me something. And I did, and that was my first deal. And I think one is contagious, and one turned to two turned to four, and then here we are. So I think the toughest thing for me was just finding that first buyer to be like, hey, I can't find you anywhere. I Googled your name and Peyton and Eli Manning came up. There's no Sean anywhere. What's you like the dumb brother?
We're brothers, we're happy and we're singing.
So yeah, so that
Did you
was
ever
the
use that?
No, but I love that. It's my favorite. Hey, Peyton. I'm like, no, I wouldn't be here. And then I have to say the same thing again. I wouldn't be here.
Yeah, I wouldn't be here. We're selling
exactly.
real estate.
Of course.
If that was my brother.
Keep doing it, though. That's a good...
That's like my friend Scorsese. He's Scorsese's nephew.
Oh, he really is?
So,
okay,
yeah,
all right.
But
it's not that bad then.
But he's still got to sell real estate.
Okay.
Just the nephew.
Yeah, of course. Just the nephew. Just the nephew in the corner.
So now, so you think gaining the trust, how do you do that?
Just being transparent. Like, as almost over the top transparent. Like, I'm not saying, hey, I'm going to call somebody, jump on the call with me. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, you want an answer, I'm going to give it to you, and I'm going to explain it to you word for word what I was just told. Right. And that's it. So I will be held accountable, but there's also a level of respect that's there, and I made it clear that, and everybody knows this, you can't control everything. So the stuff that I can't control, I don't try to.
Right.
I really don't. You may think different, but
Nah, that's
calling
not
you
true.
nonstop. But
That's
yeah.
not true.
Hey, when is this gonna happen? But no, I mean it though. Like you have to be able to control what you can control, and also, in my opinion, learning and respecting what people are doing. Like I say it for the third time. I watch, so I see like some of the agents, some that you work with, some that are just these, popular pretty faces on social media, some of the guys that are absolutely crushing it. I watch and I take notice and I say, wow, that's impressive. When you respect what you're doing, otherwise who wants this guy who comes in and thinks that he knows I don't.
Right.
I'm telling you, I have conversations every day with other realtors on my team and in other companies where I'm like, how'd you do that? Or, hey, can you help me out with this? You have to be that way, because if
Right.
you're not learning every day everybody has a bullshit filter. Everybody does. Some are better than others, but if you come in and everything is like, oh, this spacious room and this, oversized, like it's all,
Right.
you know what I'm gonna say? It's
Yeah.
not natural to me. So when you can flat out say, hey, I'm really not sure about where that cesspool is, but let me get you an answer, and then you deliver, I think that is paramount. I really do. I think that a lot of the, wide nets that are cast on clients don't help. They don't help the case. I think you have to really be concrete with people.
So it's a combination of being a straight shooter.
Oh, you have to be. Yeah, you have
Because
to be.
I feel like when you are a straight shooter with somebody,
Yeah.
and you tell the truth even when it might be in your favor to bend it a little bit.
Yeah.
When you take the yourself out of the equation, you just say, this is it.
Mm-hmm.
This is the full story. Not sugarcoating anything.
Yeah.
You earn that person's trust for life.
I-
Because everybody that they spoke to before you, if they did speak to anybody, that was not the case.
No.
So after that conversation, it's almost unfair after that point.
Yeah.
And I think people feel that.
Oh,
Like you said, everybody has that bullshit meter.
Everybody does.
Yeah.
Even people who you think that are playing in the background and that are real quiet, and they give you the one-word responses through text, and they're very like short and curt, and they want to get off the phone. I know, like, that guy doesn't play around, or that woman doesn't play around. I'm
Right.
gonna have to be on my game, because when they need something or they have a question, I can't just read what they're reading on Zillow.
Right.
I have to really go above and beyond, whether
Right.
it be calling the town and verifying information, or driving
Right.
past the house and getting a better idea of what the questions they're asking me. If you take that extra step,
Right.
I really think that helps. And the trust factor is huge. When people trust you, I mean, that goes without saying. They're going to want to do business with you, and then they're going to want to let their friends and family know that, hey, that's a nice guy. You could trust that guy. He's good.
What was your roughest deal?
You know. So my roughest deal.
Tell the story.
All right, I got it. So we closed yesterday. My roughest deal was a client who, awesome guy, no names obviously, but awesome guy. I listed a house, very tricky house. I took the listing. I'll always take listings. I don't care where it is, what it is. I'm going to do that and give it $1 million, go 100 miles per hour. But this I knew was going to be a tough one. I knew that the woman who was selling the house after Hurricane Sandy ran into a bunch of problems with having the house raised, and some really shady people who were supposed to be doing the right thing by her. So I jumped in as the listing agent. So I sat down with her and I went over the problems that could arise, and a lot of them did arise. Now on the buyer's side, I had my photographer there the day I was taking the photos were being taken to get the listing ready to go. One of the investors who I work with, who I've never worked with before, but I was trying to build a rapport with him and find him his first property with us. He's done stuff in the past. I said, hey, if you want to come over while the photos are getting done, you're more than welcome just to get an idea of what the property, the layout, where it is in the neighborhood, the size of the lot. But we're not really going to get to go in there until the photos are done and it's actually listed. So he came over. He loved the house. Loved it. It made it very easy for me. There was no selling side of it. He loved it. However, when we got our accepted offer, he started working with a lender and a company that unfortunately wasn't very honest with him. And all the stuff that we've talked about here today, they were doing the opposite. They weren't truthful with him. They were leading him down a path that wasn't going to get him to the closing table. And I think the final straw was when he called me and he said, Sean, they asked me to come and bring a blank check. And because of one specific instance or one specific characteristic of the home after the appraisal, they wanted another X amount of money down on the house, which is, I don't have to do this, what you do. You have mastered this.
No
and yeah, it makes no sense, right? So I picked up the phone, I don't know what time of night it was, and I'm like, can you help me? Right? Like, it wasn't in those words. There were a lot of curses involved with it. I can't say it because my kids watch, but it was like, Eric, this is beep, 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 beep. What can we do about this? And then here we are, a short time later, not even a long time, a short time later. We closed yesterday. He's absolutely ecstatic. My phone's vibrating right now in the chair because he's calling me to talk to me about something else and the next project.
Right.
And that's what it is. It's not all you. Right? Not right. You. I mean, the realtor. It's not all you. It's who you surround yourself with.
Right.
I'll be honest. I've bought homes. I know. I have loan originators that I've worked with in the past who've done right by me. There's a specific skill set of problem solving that is required for a deal like that.
Right.
So I know when that gets done, that was no joke.
Right.
And aside from you, the attorneys who made it work. Now I'm representing both sides,
right.
So that's even tougher because
right.
I'm telling my seller, hey, you're leaving the state. Don't book that ticket yet. Like, you really
right.
have to worry, and you know what went down. No joke.
Unfortunately, and I don't even know if I'm allowed to say this, but unfortunately, certain demographics. This client was Hispanic,
mm-hmm.
and they're not. They get taken advantage of. And it's unfortunate in our industry that still happens. And it pisses me off more than anything.
Mm.
So this particular client, we had to step in, do a specific type of loan. They were taking, a lot of times these mortgage places and loan officers and whatever, they're trying to push a route that is never going to work.
Yeah, I told you.
And
that
it takes
before, yeah.
months and months and months to find out. They should have just took the other route.
Yeah.
So that's where when you were talking about being transparent and being a straight shooter, sometimes it's the news that you don't want to tell somebody that you have to deliver up front, or it turns into a 6 months process to get to the same spot.
Oh, yeah.
And then what is not being taken into consideration is not only is that buyer being held up, but that seller has a property that they're buying out of state. And it's like this whole chain of misery.
Oh, it would have been terrible.
Yeah,
to deliver that news.
And I'm very happy and grateful to get the phone call to save the day. However, a lot of times I'm looking at this file and I'm like, what was going on?
Yeah.
Like it frustrates me that I have to step in and clean up somebody else's mess.
Yeah.
But obviously, I'm grateful that people trust me to make that phone call.
Yeah, he's super happy.
Right.
Like,
and that's what it's all about.
Super happy. And I think that when there's a little bit of a language barrier, that bothers me, and it's frustrating for me because I want to help and I can't. And as you could, I think that talking to people is one of my strong suits and working things out. And I wanted to make sure, and I thought that was happening initially, that he's put in the right position.
Right.
Because if not, now I'm almost corroborating this path to destruction when I don't want that.
Right.
So I said to him from day one, you have to trust me. And he understood, and we talk, he speaks English and Spanish, we talk. However, I know that there's a level of comfort when you have your circle.
Right.
If I'm gonna get if I have, mosquitoes in my backyard, I'm not just gonna go through the old school yellow pages, white pages, whatever it is, and I know a guy who I trust, who I don't have to be home. He's going to leave the bill. He's not going to beat me up with the price. I'm just throwing a random thing out there because it just happened today. With my buyer, he had his support system, his referrals, and he thought that was going to work out, and they did not do right by him. So I'm glad it worked out, but that was tricky. I see, that's one thing I could say. I think that experience in my very short time period, I'm able to kind of throw my weight around a little bit. Like, yeah, I don't know if everybody goes through that often, because that was a crazy scenario. Yeah. And everybody working together, yourself, the attorneys, it made it right.
Yeah, it made everything happen.
Yeah.
And sometimes we forget what we're doing. The longer I'm in the business, sometimes it's very easy to forget what we actually do on a daily basis, which is help people.
Yeah.
We're thinking about the problems, what we have to do next, the paperwork, the guidelines, and we forget that there's another person at the end at the end of it, and you have to constantly remind yourself of that, because then it makes everything so much easier. There's like a mission and a purpose that you, like, I have to get this done for him.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
It's not just the file at this point. So I'm happy that we were able to get it done. Let's talk about what your day job is.
So I'm a detective on Long Island, and I've been with the department for a while now. 17 years between New York City and my current department, and very, very lucky, very fortunate to have the position I have. The guys around me and the women around me that I work with are awesome. My bosses are great. Ton of support. It's not all what you see on TV. You know, it is like a fraternity, I guess you could say, not to sound too masculine, but the word that came to my head is to just, you know, a family, right? So I think that that's awesome, and that has been, people say like, oh, there's some professions that help you in the next field. Like if you are a plumber, you know, could you translate that to becoming a general contractor? Yeah, you probably could. It's the same type of home improvement, you know, industry. I think in this industry, although one is completely different than the other, I said it before, problem solving is like the biggest thing. Like, I hate when people don't think for a solution before they just pout. And I do it a lot with my kids. When they can't find something, or they can't, it's like, and I was probably the same way. I'm immediately like, no, hold on, solution. You have to be.
Same way.
There's no reason not to be. And in this industry, with the utmost respect, the problems, although we just almost had one, and people would have not had places to live where they want to be, they're still alive, and they're still happy, and they're still healthy.
It's not life and death.
No. And I am not sitting here saying that this is like some, you know, Bad Boys 3 movie at all. I'm just saying that you really are able to, there's levels to everything, and you could put things into perspective like, wow, I was just there at, you know, 8 a.m. and that was happening. And now at 7 p.m. I'm fielding a phone call because somebody found termites in their basement.
Or there was a stove.
you know, and I say that, and I don't mean to, you know, dumb it down, but I have Chris White. Right? Chris is one of your guys, right?
Chris is the best.
If Chris was sitting right here, Chris would be nodding his head. I don't even have to, I could co-sign that he would say that right now. Because it is true. When you are able to, you know, your sister, same thing. You sit with these people, and there's an immediate connection because you're like, hey, is this hard? Yes. Is it life or death? Hopefully not. No, you know, like, it's not. Yeah, it's not.
So a very seasoned real estate attorney told me once, there are no emergencies in real estate.
No, I mean, I have emergencies.
and that's because we're impatient in something, which leads to success. I think what you said before, we kind of glanced over it, like, to be impatient is a strength.
Oh, of course.
Because it's like, you want to, if it's meant to be, it's up to me. Sort of mentality, where a lot of people, they just wait and somebody else will solve it, or you know, let me just be patient. That's a passive route.
If you sit back, I mean, they make these CRMs for a reason, right? Like, I mean, think about it. I know it sounds crazy, but why, if the market, if this business were about selling homes and buying homes, and you did that and everybody was successful, you wouldn't need to follow up. Like, oh, everybody would just be like, hey, I got this. Eric, don't worry about that referral or whatever. Just call me in a month when the close. That doesn't exist.
No.
So if you're
Not if you want to.
Yeah, I mean, there's a level of being way over the top impatient, and I'm super guilty of that. But there's also you have to really compartmentalize everything that you have going on. When you can do that, and you could say, okay, for example, Bob's house is going to be good, no hiccups. I can devote a little bit more time to Steve's house and that situation. So there's different levels to it, but in the same breath, yeah, you have to. If you're not that way and you're not impatient, then what do you really? I mean that. Like, I was talking to Kevin Iglesias from my company the other day, and he's super successful. Kevin, great guy, and we talk about it. He says it himself, just like you. He's like, I'm super impatient. You have to be.
Right.
If you're not impatient, then what? Like you said, is this passive going to create? No, it's not.
Passive is not for our industry.
No.
Period.
No.
Even what we do here, like, if everybody was passive that worked at a mortgage company,
Yeah.
it's a bad. It'll end up bad,
Yeah.
or it'll just take 6 months.
Probably wouldn't have all these fancy offices.
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'd be half the size.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a pleasure speaking with you.
Dude, it's forever.
You're like a brother to me.
No, please,
So
same here.
I'm wishing you many, many more deals closed and much more success for you
Yeah.
and your family. And
Great.
we'll catch you guys at the next one.
Thank you. Appreciate it, brother.
Not your average lender.
Reporting live from our secret headquarters.
How can I be more organized and more productive? Should be happening is, hey, what do you want to spend monthly? Oh, you have X amount of dollars to work with. The fear of starting, not the actual task itself.
So you saw, wait, so let's hone in on that. So you
And really realize the seriousness of the industry that I'm in and what it could do for my life, my family's life.